We are joined today to discuss theater and teaching theater. We have a lovely and talented group to join us on this topic. I am very excited for this. So we're going to start with the rest of the top row with Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Simmons. I'm a high school theater teacher in Lexington, South Carolina, though I also have middle school teaching experience as well. So that's what I do.
Right. And then beneath her is Alicia.
Hi, I'm Alicia Pillsbury. I have been teaching theater for 18 plus years, and I have taught elementary, middle school, and high school, a little bit of adults in there as well, both classroom theater and directing and producing productions to all of those age groups. So,
thank you for joining us. And next is Charles.
Same last name. It's a weird thing. I don't know how it happened. I'm Charles Pillsbury. I have been working with Alicia for many of those 18 years as the designated set designer, builder, and coordinator of both volunteer and student work as far as set builds go for educational theater and a bunch of community theater. And I also volunteer for puppetry track at Dragon Con and do a lot of puppet stuff. So just finished a run at XPT.
Very nice. Bo is a lovely human being, and we hope to get him on one of these at one time. And then certainly not least, but the last one at the moment and directly underneath her. So you're my support today. Primetime Steve.
Hi, guys. I'm Primetime Steve. I'm a professional stand-up comedian. I'm also a former high school theater teacher for the past 20 plus odd years, working with high school and middle school students, directing shows and teaching theater basics, and also teaching script and screenwriting.
Very nice. And let me since you mentioned that, let me go ahead and state, in my personal opinion, I stand firm with the WGA.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully the people the Netflix apparently come to their senses soon. Pay the writer, pay the writer, pay the writer.
I agree.
And then I'm going to get off that soapbox and say, welcome, everybody. And again, thank you. We are here, as I said, to discuss the impact of theatrical education. What is theatrical education? Why should we do it? Why should people who are not why people who are not planning to go into theater, why should people learn theater and that sort of thing? So we'll go ahead and we'll set this. We'll go around the horn again. Start with you, Jennifer. So how did you first get involved with all of this, with theater and then teaching?
And so I started, I guess I was a dancer first. I started taking dance lessons really young and didn't even know anything about theater until I got into late elementary school, and I got to say some lines in a school play. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And so then I kind of continued doing like community theater and doing some stuff there. And I did theater in high school. And my theater teacher in high school was very important to me, very influential to me. And I really kind of wanted to be a theater teacher at that time. But my parents were both teachers. And at that time I went, I'm not going to be a teacher because I can't do the same thing as them. So I actually went on to major in business, but minor in theater until I did that for about 10. Well, I mean, I graduated and worked in business and administration and marketing for about 10 years. And then I decided that was not fulfilling to me. So I went back to school and got my Master's of Arts in Teaching for theater education and have been teaching ever since.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And how about you, Alicia?
Well, I sort of came at it from a different perspective. My background was in elementary education, and elementary educators are performers.
Yeah.
And then there came the need for some theater teachers in the area in which I was teaching. And so I was somewhat self-taught, and then went back and got some extra training in theater education. And so that is kind of where my background came in. I sort of came at it from a different avenue while I was still teaching in elementary education, and then sort of started adding on teaching classes and then productions and then that sort of thing. So my background was a little bit different in that I started in elementary education and then started sort of tacking on the education and within the arts, mainly in theater and that sort of thing. So that's sort of how my background became.
Kind of drifted into it then.
Yes, sort of drifted into that and then sort of grew from there.
Okay. And how about you, Charles?
I was
background noise from somebody though.
I was the designated theater kid.
Okay.
Our high school, my wife and I have known each other since high school, was a very conservative boarding academy, and there was not proper theater, but there was a drama club, and I was part of that for my last couple of years. And I was in a theater program in college, and then basically kind of stopped doing theater because I was a young father. And when she started, way to point, when she started teaching it, kind of pulled up all the old notes and all the old brain cycles. And I work in IT now, but I had done a lot of construction work when I was young. So that kind of played into all of the set design and set building work that I've done with schools.
Cool. All right. And Mr. Steve.
Well, I was kind of a loner kid in high school. When I first started high school, we had a very exclusive drama club, drama group that, had been together for a long time. And so the freshmen didn't necessarily get a part in the shows. And then my sophomore year, we got a new drama teacher. And Dr. Richard McMitchin is probably one of the best in the business, as far as I'm concerned. He's a very caring individual, and he sees people beyond just what you see out in the hallway. And he saw that I could be a part of and fit in, and that was where I needed to be. So he invited me to be a part of the theater. He just came up to me in the middle of the hallway and said, we'd love to have you at the drama club meeting. We're having one this Thursday night. Let's find a place for you in the theater club. And I never looked back. I was, became the president of the theater club by the time I was a junior in high school, and went to state competitions and performed with the International Thespian Society, went to the International Thespian Conference several times and performed. And then out of high school, I went and became a touring stage actor in the West Coast. I toured Guys and Dolls on the West Coast, and then went touring up in the East Coast and all across Canada with a production of Rent. And then came back to New York and performed in Les Mis. So I've been in and out of theater my entire life. Being on stage is just where I have always wanted to be and where I feel most at home. When I left New York, I moved back to Atlanta, and Richard McMitchin contacted me when I moved back and asked if I would be willing to come and help him direct a show at my old alma mater. I said I would, and I started getting involved with the kids there. And the next thing I know, I'm working with 3 different high schools in the area, helping the teachers there direct their shows and teach some of their classes and work with the kids on some unique and creative ways to learn theater and be a part of theater. And it's just a passion. It really is. It has to be a passion. You have to be passionate about it in order to do it, because it's so time consuming. It's so it's not just time consuming, it's all consuming. Yeah. So it's something you have to really love.
Yeah,
notice the nods all around.
Everybody's like, absolutely.
Yeah, because Lord love a duck, we're not doing it for the money, because
No.
isn't.
On neither end of the spectrum.
Yes. Either at the education end or the theater end. It's like it's there may be money to be found, but we're not finding it. So yeah, we definitely do it for love. So it sounds like a lot of all of you pretty much have a similar path in that you started with the theater and then fell into education, or would you say it was the other round? I think Alicia, you were a little different. You were a little more education focused first.
Yes.
If anyone would like to elaborate on that.
And I think for at least for Alicia and I, a lot of where that happened was our oldest kid, who's 26 now. It was when they got involved in theater and became more heavily involved, that really sparked a lot more involvement for us. That, you know, it went from, hey, this is a thing I enjoy, this is a thing I would do, and things I have been involved in, to, okay, this is already going to, you know, this is a way I'm going to end up spending more time with my family as well, and really kind of driving that. And then as our kids became more and more theatrical, the more of them we have, they've driven it even more, right? Our daughter, who is 17, has been so heavily involved in so many aspects in multiple community and educational realms, so that we end up involved in even more ways that way too.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say, so I started off on the performing side in high school and everything. But then when I decided that I wanted to pursue something in this field as a career, it was, for me, it was very much theater education specifically. So I guess mine's kind of weird because it's a hybrid. Yeah.
Well, no one in theater does everything, you know, exactly the same straight line way. That is definitely like, so Steve, you kind of fell into the educational side as well, being asked, hey, would you come help us out? And then what made you kind of stick with it? Was it the educational side, the working with the kids, or just that this is cool? I mean, what kind of kept you going?
You know, I think it was kind of a mixture of a lot of things, because I really certainly enjoyed working with the kids, remembering where I was as a kid and having the influence that Dr. Mitchin had over me, and the way that my peers kind of surrounded me and kind of enveloped me and brought me into the group. So it made me feel welcome and important and wanted. You know, I wanted that for those kids, because I could see that, you know, kids struggle. I mean, they go through the same things that we went through when we were in school. You know, we think that, you know, times are so different, but really, in all honesty, the kids go through the same struggles that we went through, and our parents went through, and our grandparents went through. It's being wanted and accepted by your peers and a place to fit in. And I think that theater is a great medium for that. I think that because it's such a loving and accepting art anyway. You know, it's not. That's why it's one of the things that, you know, I say I was in competitions when I was in high school, because we were a theater arts magnet school, and we were made to participate in competitions. But I don't necessarily agree with the idea of theater competition. I think that theater should be more like choral, and have like festivals, and where you can be ranked on your own merits and not have to worry about being compared to somebody else, because theater is so subjective anyway. But I think that these kids, it was really about making these kids feel loved and accepted in a happy and safe place where they can be expressive and be free to be who they are.
Definitely. So I will say it depends on the choral.
Yeah,
my experience with choir is was very competition based. But you're right. I totally agree with you on that.
Well, there's always going to be some competition among people anyway.
Oh yeah.
Where, you know, oh, our school's going to be better than your school, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you have a competition for competition's sake, you're actually getting people to root against the failure of another group doing an art project.
I agree.
Yeah.
And you don't ever want art to fail.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's like trying to compare someone doing like one high school group is doing Waiting for Godot, and the other one is doing, you know, Cats. It's like you can't really fairly, you know. Now if they're both doing Cats, that's a whole different thing. But I'm also reminded of the old joke of when they changed the Oscars from the winner goes to the Oscar goes to, because God knows we don't want to turn this into a competition.
Oh no.
Oh yes.
There's no ego in theater.
Nothing at all. No.
But that is something that there is always going to be kind of a drive of I'm the better actor, or I'm the better performer, or I'm trying to, as kids are always trying to find themselves. That's one of the things about high school. We were talking about, you were saying that it's the same. That has never changed. A good chunk of high school is figuring out who the hell I am.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep, as an educator in theater, where, like I just mentioned, it can be pretty ego driven? How would you, as an educator and as a theater teacher, help these kids navigate that minefield and not let it either crush them because they don't think they're doing as well as they should, or getting the inflated head of, well, everyone says I'm awesome?
Well, I will say that for me, I try to really build a sense, like from day one in class, or if we're doing some kind of after school production or anything, from day one, we try to build a sense of ensemble and community just amongst the entire cast. And I make it a personal point to, with all of my, because I guess my technique of it is that I try to give everybody equal attention, and I try to give them as much attention. So, for example, when I am working on a show that has an ensemble, we just did Into the Woods, and I worked in an ensemble into the Woods, which was already a feat of its own, because it's not really an ensemble show, or a show with ensemble. So just trying to make sure that each kid feels that they are valued, feel that they are seen, feel that they are a contributor to the artistic process. Whether that means I sometimes force myself to give them notes at the end of, during, I may not have anything to really give them a note on, but I will force myself to do that just to make sure that they know that they're seen, that they're valued, that they're part of it. So there's that. But then on the other side, I also don't indulge kids who feel like they're superstars and stuff too. I mean, I don't try to play into their egos and everything. I try to give the same amount of attention to all the kids, I guess, is what I try to do, regardless of their role, regardless of what their ability is.
Yeah, I would just build off of that and say, yeah, I do very much the same thing. And it's a process, and it's something that I'm continually building my own way of doing things. But right from the very beginning, building that concept of ensemble and the idea that there is no one star in a show. I think one thing that I do is, in addition to just the cast, we pull in our crew and our stage manager right from the very beginning as well, and we build them up as part of the process as well, and we talk about how crucial they are to the entire process. And we build them into the production just as much as I do the cast members. So we're building them up. One thing that I do as well is I have my my cast members, my smaller parts. They all build stories, backstories for their character, and I learned those backstories for their character so that I know them intimately, so that I can talk about the backstories for those characters when as I'm building the show, so that I can reference them, and so that those are built into our bigger story, just like the main characters' backstories are, and that helps those characters feel like they're just as big a part of the show as the other characters are. And my students really love that I remember things like, oh, you remember that, I have a sister or something like that. Of course, I remember that you have a sister. That's important to our show. Those sorts of things really go a long way to helping the smaller roles feel like they have importance there. And I think that the vocabulary that you use as a director with the cast members goes a long way towards helping the entire cast feel like they are valued. So I'm always very careful to use language with them to make sure that they know that they are valued. And I don't think, I try to make sure that I'm not saying like, I need all of my leads here on this night.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I need all my leads sitting over here. I want all my leads over here. I will call them by character name. Could I please have this character stand here and this character stand here, as opposed to my leads and that sort of thing, so that they're all called just by name and they're not feeling separated by importance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always a process. Like, I'm always learning new ways of trying to make my cast feel like they're on the same level of importance to the show. Like, I don't have it all down yet. I'm continually learning, but that concept of ensemble, like Jennifer was saying, you know, it's so important to build right from the beginning. But I do feel like it's important to build into that concept of the crew is just as important too. Like,
Absolutely, they are.
and I always thank, like, when we have parents in to help, when there's when we start to add people into, like, our volunteers who come in to, like, run the concession stand and those sorts of things, like, we go out and we thank them and all of that. We just build this concept of every person who's involved in theater has equal importance to making sure that this show is successful.
Yeah.
Sure.
Indeed. As my high school theater teacher drilled into my head so many times, there are no small parts, just small actors.
Right.
And
Well, and
that is, go ahead.
No, please, Sarah, please.
I was just going to say that is so refreshing for me to hear, as somebody who isn't an educator but was the educatee or the student. When I was in high school and even middle school, it was the same people getting the same parts, the same leads, and so being able to hear that theater educators, they're right now is different. Their mentality is different. There's not just the one star child in their production. That makes me feel so much better as a performer who struggled quite a bit, because I wasn't the star performer when I was in high school, especially.
One of the things that I learned very, very early from Dr. McMitchin was to, throughout the school year, if you're going to do multiple productions, which we did, you got to mix it up a little bit. And you got to give as many different styles of theater a chance to shine. So we not only did major productions, we had at our Performing Arts Center, we would do one musical a year.
Mm-hmm.
We would do one full-length straight play in a year. We would do a one-act competition piece, and then we would do a dinner theater where we would do 3 one-act plays in the round. And so not only were they learning different styles of theater by performing in the round, performing on a straight stage, performing in musicals. You know, not every child is going to be musically inclined. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to cast a lot of people, that even those that can't really sing, into the cast. They just may not get the leads in that particular one. That may not be where their strengths are. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do the miracle worker and give somebody an opportunity to play Helen Keller and just absolutely crush it. And, you know, wow the audience with their ability to envelop that character, because that's where somebody's strength lies. We not only did that, we had a mime troupe. We had that would go out and we would do performances and do fundraisers and things like that, where we were learning mime all the time. I was learning from a professional, and then I would go back in and I would teach my fellow students what I learned from the professional mime, and then I was the one that was running the troupe. So we had a lot of different avenues for kids to be able to do that. With the theater in the round, we would do, when I was directing, we would do one that I would direct, Dr. Mitchell would direct one, and then we would have a student director direct a third. And you have 3 casts, so you get as many kids involved as possible to be on that stage. And not only that, but they got to wait on the tables in their characters. And one of the things that I find with giving, especially if somebody feels like they got slighted on their part, because that's the way that it is. Oh man, I wish that I had gotten that part. That's the part that I wanted. That looks so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
I try to give them as much creative control over the part that they do have. Give me some creative input.
Mhm.
Why don't you show me what you're going to do with this character, and then go as big as you want, and I'll rein you back
Mm.
to where you need to be.
Mhm.
But that way they feel like they're putting themselves into that character. They have control over that, and it gives them the opportunity to, I don't know, have a say,
Mm-hmm.
have ownership over that. And I think that's very important. I think that's a great thing about theater, is because when it is your part, you can have ownership over that part.
Mm-hmm. You can invest in it, and and avoid that trap of, oh well, I'm just this minor character that doesn't matter. I'm going to say my 4 lines and be out. It actually gives them a reason to give a damn.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Every character has a driving point in the story.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be there.
Right.
Yeah, every character thinks they're the main character. Just ask them.
Well, they are the main character of their own
In
stories.
their own story.
Yeah. Which that does kind of segue into the next point that I wanted us to go over. We're talking about how this helps helps people learn more about themselves, learn how to be more creative, to drive and invest themselves into things. There are a lot of people that say, and they say this about a lot of arts education, so this is not exactly a unheard of, but especially about theater, there are a lot of people who are trying to cut corners and cut budgets and say school should just be about, hard facts and numbers, and that there's no point to theater education. And as much as I disagree with that sentiment, it is out there. So I would like to hear from all of you how you respond to when you run into that argument. I'll pick on you, Charles. You go first.
To me, I think that the same applies to a lot of the arts, in that the viewpoint that the arts aren't important ends up being a disservice to the broader set of skills that anybody needs. Like I said, I don't work my day job in theater. I work in IT, in the banking industry, and there are so many things that theatrical education helps with in just doing day-to-day life. And that can be the stuff I've learned from set design and set building being applicable to home repair, but also just to the interactions and the emotional depth that comes from having played with characters through theater, allows you to work with and empathize with other people that you work with. So I think the view of theater and a lot of the arts, to me, from an education perspective, is more about how that rounds you out as a human, so that you are not just thinking of yourself whenever you're having interactions.
Okay. Alicia, since you started more education side than theater side.
Yeah. So, I mean, the skills that are learned in theater education are just invaluable. I mean, we can start with just talking about the ability to interact with people and to speak confidently with others. But I think it goes much deeper into the skills that you learn in theater really help you to define who you are as a person. The playing with different characters helps you to define who you are as a person, and solidify your experience in life, and to be able to really kind of define who you are and where you fit in into life as a whole. And I believe that all children should have had experience with theater to help them kind of have that experience with life, and play with character, to not only have confidence but to have that definition of self.
Jennifer, do you want anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would also say that one thing that I think really I see my kids do in their lives is creative problem solving too. Like it is something that allows them to think of things in a different way and then solve it in a different way, whether it is a human interaction, whether it's a tangible interaction. It's just, it gives you an opportunity to really be a creative problem solver. And then just to go on what Alicia said too, I would say the number one thing that I get from a lot of students is after they have gone through my class, whether or not they want to be in theater or whether doesn't matter what they want to do with their life. The number of times that I've had students tell me that they have gained self-confidence and that they thought they couldn't do something and then they did, that alone, just that process as a human and making you a more self-confident person and making you know that you can do the hard things is immeasurable in its value.
Mm-hmm. The soft skills, I believe, as
Yeah.
they call them. Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to just kind of tack onto that and say that I think that first of all, I would have failed out of high school if I didn't have a creative outlet.
Mm.
It's not just necessarily theater, but there are, whether it's any kind of an art, whether it's dance or music or a band or what chorus, whatever it is that is your creative outlet. Kids need that. They need to be able to exercise both sides of their brain. Because if you only work out the left side of your brain and you let the right half just go off to the pasture or whatever, then you're going to wind up with just a bunch of drones.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to wind up with a lot more kids failing out of high school, failing out of school, not feeling like they have any kind of place there. Exactly. Because it's not just about math and science, but it's about, I guess throughout history, the things that have lasted the most have been the creative expressions of art.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely. And we got a comment on Facebook, and I want to highlight that because I don't know if you see it on there, Gary, but basically our lives are built around entertainment a lot of the time when we're not at work. And where do these people expect that to come from if we don't embrace that and and nurture that call to be creative and to express ourselves and stuff like that? That aspect of our lives is going to be gone, essentially. Right. I mean, and whether that be in the theater or TV, movies, music, all of these things, they have value and they add value to everybody's lives, even if somebody isn't actually acting but just consuming that art form. It adds value. And so I think that's one thing that people in my school specifically did not understand. Theater is, maybe it's not college preparatory, but it is life preparatory. And it creates jobs and it creates entertainment and value in society. So
well, and then just going back on what you guys were talking about earlier, especially you, Alicia, talking about encompassing everybody into and making everybody feel a part of. How important is it that kids that work backstage and learn the craft of designing a set and learn how to operate the lights and the sound booth and things like that? These are the people that discover that they enjoy that kind of work, and they're going to go into engineering. They're going to go into design. They're going to go into audio visual and learn that aspect, and that's what they're going to do for the rest of their lives because they found their calling. And they did that because they had the opportunity to learn that in school. And it came from the theater. It came from doing productions and doing, working with the that's how I got my start. He brought me in to work backstage, and I helped design a set for Godspell. And it was amazing. I thought, this is amazing. I ultimately wound up being on stage more than I wanted being backstage, but I never forgot that.
Mhm.
I never forgot that how important I felt designing this, 45-foot chain link fence that we could fold up and easily take on and off stage in 51 and a half seconds for state competition, so that we could start with the bear stage and end with the bear stage. We had it down. We could do the whole thing from start to finish, Godspell, one act play version in 52 minutes flat.
Wow.
I was so
Wow.
proud of that.
That's impressive.
I was very proud of that aspect of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was 52 minutes every single time. But because they allowed us the opportunity to creatively problem solve, it made us feel like we were part of the whole process. So whether you're on stage or off stage, there's such a need for those avenues for those kids to be a part of that and to help them to self-discover.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to be an actor and actress on stage. Very, very few go that route.
Mhm.
But you will, through that process, find out where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely. Oh, go ahead, Charles. Sorry.
I think it's a great point, because there is so broadly a perception of, oh, there is a theater program, it is the actors, right? As opposed to there's a theater program, it is this whole set of people who are actors and are complementary, and also those who cross all of those paths there. I go back to being dad, but have a kid in college who was always backstage and loves being backstage and loves the building, being the stage ninja, but also ends up on stage once in a while, and that has helped build other skills. And there's so many things there that, much like with, you think of film and television industry in Georgia and how many jobs there are within that are not just the people who are on screen, but all of that supporting structure and other jobs and other things that are part of creating this thing.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Something we've always tried to push is it's an uphill battle, because like you said, anytime you say theater, people just think of the people on the stage, and it's like, no, we want to talk about everything. So thank you all for bringing that up, because without a house manager, without a stage manager, without a prop director, without a lighting crew, without the sound crew, you've got a bunch of people bumping around in the dark no one can hear or see.
Right.
So the back of the house is just as important as the front of the house, and those are the skills. Again,
80% of production is not seen on stage at all.
Right. And that's so important. The other thing is it really teaches people how to be a team and support each other and work with each other. And those kind of aspects, especially earlier in life, group projects and stuff like that, that's great. But this is an active, like, living, breathing organism almost. And it forces people to work with each other and resolve conflicts. And it's almost the earliest form of that a kid can have in some ways, because it's before they have a job, it's before they they would have experienced those things. So I think that's also important.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of nuance to it too, right? They're doing that problem solving in a very different way than, say, even a team sport, where yes, they're doing some team building, but this requires a lot more abstract work and a lot, just psychologically and emotionally.
Exactly.
Yeah, indeed. And so, and this kind of also ties in, like, there's always been a friendly rivalry sometimes between, shall we say, tech and actors. As educators, and you're teaching people, what are you guys doing to help kind of alleviate that? And that kind of ties into the following point, and I'm kind of rambling, I apologize, but what are the biggest challenges you find as theater educators? Jennifer.
Well, so, like, specifically on that topic, or in general?
You can start on that subject, or branch off as you see fit.
Okay, well, specifically on that topic, I will be honest, I don't get a ton of that at my school, just because, I don't, because like I kind of like Alicia was saying before, I do the same thing where my crew's there the whole time with the actors, and they're constantly involved in the process. And so all of I feel like I don't see a lot of the infighting kind of actor versus, whatever, I don't get a lot of that back, with my kids, which I guess I'm fortunate. They're also really good kids that they just are really nice kids who all love each other. And there's a lot of crossover. And, I have some kids who work backstage some shows, but then they're on stage some shows and vice versa. So I don't have a ton of that. But I would say that my biggest thing the biggest issue, I think, in theater education for me personally is probably time management and resources, just because in a community theater or professional theater setting, you have usually a costume designer, you have a lighting designer, you have a team to do this, you have a team to do that, you have and you're in school theater, it's like one person. It's me. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. So so that's always kind of, there's not enough of me to go around. Is my big thing, is that it, unlike anything else, where you might have a team of people who get to be in charge of things, it's me.
How about you, Alicia?
I would 100% agree. I would say it's two things. Number one is funding, getting enough funding to do what I would like to do, to always funding. But number two, getting those resources and growing the value amongst, I kind of work in two separate areas. One, when I'm working in a school setting, growing the value and getting the help with parents to assist with things like helping with costuming and helping with sets and those sorts of things. It would be wonderful to have the value there to get some support from parents to assist with those sorts of things would be phenomenal. And then working in a community setting, working with, again, parents and having them have the value of understanding, yes, this is a commitment, and having your student there for rehearsals when they have committed and they have, signed a contract saying that they're going to be present for the rehearsals and those sorts of things, it is a commitment. And not showing up because you don't want to drive them to rehearsals and, my goodness, your child is whatever role they might be, and I can't run a rehearsal without your child being there and not showing up is very frustrating. So I think having the value of understood by parents and especially parents is enormous, and that is a struggle both in community and school settings. That is a huge struggle for me, and it gets overwhelming sometimes when, like Jennifer was saying, it's when you're the only one and you're pouring your heart and your soul into this. You feel like the people that you're pouring your heart and your soul into it, they just aren't valuing it on the same level that you do. It gets overwhelming. So that, I think, would be the greatest struggle for me as an educator.
For me, I would always try to identify at the beginning of the year with our first club meeting. I would invite parents to attend the club meeting as well. Yeah. And I'm trying to identify my drama mamas.
Yes.
I'm trying to identify the guys that sit there and they're talking about the tools they have in their garage. These are the people that I want and that I'm going to recruit, one of each of those people to come in and help out with, because they're the ones that are going to get the other parents involved. They're the ones that are going to start the phone chain. I'm not going to do that. They're going to do that. They're going to get that going. They say, listen, our kids are all involved in this. We want the best production possible. I'm getting a sewing circle together. We're going to make the costumes for this show. be at my house at such and such a time, and all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I got costumes being thrown at me. You know, we did nonsense, and I said, listen, there's not a lot of people in this show, but I really want some realistic looking habits for my kids to wear. And I had one lady that came forward. She didn't even have a kid at the school anymore. She was a drama mama from 2 years previous. She came to me. She said, I heard you want costumes. I said, I do. And she goes, well, let me make them for you. And the next thing I know, the next week I had 6 beautiful full-length habits that, I mean, honestly could have passed Pope inspection. Okay. And she made them all by hand. When you identify those people, those are the people that really want. They're there. They're hanging out in the fringes, waiting for somebody to notice them, waiting for somebody to give them the opportunity to get involved, because those are the ones that want to be involved for not just for them, but for their kids as well. And those are the ones that maybe say, you know, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm looking for a creative outlet myself, or you know, I'm out of work for the last couple of months. So I'm just kind of doing nothing at the moment. I'm looking for a creative outlet. Let's get them involved, you know, and that it helps too with the kids seeing their parents be involved with it. They're like, okay, you know, it helps kind of, there's something they have in common now that they're talking to their parents about, you know, and these other kids are going home going, well, such and such's dad is helping out build the set. How come aren't you helping build the set? You know, and I just find that it's a snowball effect. And the next thing I know, I'm not having to do hardly anything as far as that. And my focus is on the kids and getting the kids ready for the show, because I'm still, of course, planning out the lighting. I'm still, of course, designing the set, and I'm still making the sound patterns and putting everything backstage together for the direction of the show. And when it comes to my shows, I like to sit up in the light booth and not do anything. I just like to watch the show when it happens, because my stage managers, they're going to run the show. My lighting designer, they're going to do all the lights. You know, I've got a good group of people back there, and if I've done my job, I should be able just to sit back and watch the show. Yeah. But I find that the biggest struggle is overcoming a sense of finding a place, making sure that every kid finds their place, making sure that every parent knows their responsibility. Look, if your kid's going to be involved with this, you have a responsibility to make sure that they're at rehearsals on time, that they're not missing, that if we need something from you guys, because we don't do candy bars as a fundraiser. That's great for other people and that do things. But when I do my fundraisers are all about theater. When we do fundraisers, that's why we do our dinner theater. It's very, very low overhead and extremely good money coming in for the theater program. We can pay for our entire theater year through our dinner theater.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to stick around afterwards, I can give you a plan for that, and I can show you how that works. And I'm telling you, it's so much fun. It is so much fun.
Well, and that kind of ties into the next point we wanted to talk about, or one of the next points anyway, is we talk about the children a lot in the theater, but what about the adults? And can and should you get them involved? And especially if their kids have, graduated, do you try to keep those parents involved, or do you just, let them go, all right, your kid's gone, bye?
I love it when we can get them involved, and there are jewels of parents that get involved and stay involved, but it's hit or miss, I guess I might say. Is that a good way to classify it? It's certainly not across the board, at least in my experience, to get parents that are like love theater and love to stay. But when they are my very best friends.
Yeah, I would say the same. That I don't have. I have had a tendency to spend my career at schools that are more. I mean, just because this plays into it is I have been at more low income schools, and a lot of my parents are very supportive and wonderful, but they can't always be there to help because they're working multiple jobs. They're doing stuff like that. So I don't. So while they would like to help, I don't always have parents who are able to help. But when they do, they definitely do stick around, and I always I have the opposite where I always like to try to get. I have a lot of parents who have younger kids, and so I'm like, your younger kid's gonna come do theater too, right? Because this kid's amazing. I would like another one like that. Have more children so that you can send them to me. But yeah, that's.
I don't know. It's I've always had this idea of, when I talk to parents, I'm like, if your kid is passionate about this, you need to have a certain level of interest as well. Because if you play a part in the interest in their interest, then they're going to stay interested. They're going to want to work harder for it. And I think that parents kind of, at least in my experience, parents have really gotten a hold of that, and have taken that and run with it. I did have some parents that have stayed past their kid being there, and I have to get them recertified to come back on campus. I'm like, well, you can't actually be here because you don't have a child here anymore. So, but let me get you certified as a community coach so you can come in and work with the kids, because they have such a, and there's, again, I might just be very, very blessed at the schools that I've been at to have that problem, to say I've got a lot of parental support. But it really is a very important aspect of what we do, because we can't do it all.
Right.
We can't wear 15 hats and be successful in every avenue. Something is going to get dropped. Something is going to fall by the wayside unless we've got some sort of support someplace. Whether that's being from other staff members at the school, or having parents help out, or having really, really great student leaders. But the student leaders, they have to learn from somebody.
Right.
And I find that if it's not just me saying it all the time, if it's somebody else, it adds credibility for those kids, and they really kind of latch on to what people are saying, and they take it to heart.
Yeah, because they see you telling stuff every day. If it comes from someone outside, then it's, hey, maybe it means something. So kind of tagging off that, then, what would you say is the most, not exactly, I don't want to use the word important, but what do you say is like one of the most meaningful things as a theater educator that you guys can impart to the students, and beyond just, okay, learn your lines, step here?
Iambic pentameter.
Yes.
The theater is a safe space. Theater is a safe space.
Yeah, let your creative light shine. Don't be afraid to try and fail, because that's how we learn how to succeed, is through our failures. And again, it comes from what Alicia was saying. It is a safe space. It's a place where you can do that and feel okay about it. And you can take that into every walk of life, whether you're going to be in the arts after school or not. Take that opportunity to say, well, I've got to do a presentation for my boss, and I've got to talk for 25 minutes on this subject. They're going to harken back to when they had to learn that monologue for that particular play, or for that particular class project that they were doing in a theater class. And they said, I have to learn this particular monologue, and I'm going to apply what I've learned from that. And you'll find that they take those lessons with them, so it can help in every aspect of what they're going to do after school. It can help in every aspect of life, because it is it's an expression of life.
One of the favorite things I saw last summer, I went to the National Puppetry Conference at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center, which is all a mouthful, and where the National Theater Institute lives, and like their motto is risk, fail, risk again. I think as anybody growing in any kind of theatrical endeavor, that idea of giving them the safe space to risk, have it go poorly, and still feel good to come back and take another risk, because that allows for so much growth in whatever process you're doing.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I always, I mean, I know it's probably been said before. I think I got this from somebody else, but not to, you got to keep going until you get the yes. So when you find something and you're not getting it the right way, or you maybe didn't get the right result you want, you got to keep going until you get it. And so just that perseverance and that tenacity to keep going forward, because, I love to tell my kids, nobody said theater was easy, because they all think it's going to be easy. And you got to keep going.
Indeed. All right, so I want to thank everybody. We are pretty much running up on time. So this has been a wonderful conversation. We could say a lot more. So we may touch on this topic again. You're all welcome to come back either on this or other topics. Anybody who's interested in you and what you're doing, or would like to support your educational theater efforts, please start. We'll go back in reverse order this time. Primetime Steve, how can people look you up and help you out? If they
Well, I'm actually not currently teaching theater. I just moved to Knoxville, Tennessee a couple
Get out of
months
here.
So. But my wife and I are actually doing a midlife change of careers, if you will. But I'm actually getting ready to start touring with stand-up comedy again in the next couple of months. So I'm going to be actually going back out on the road.
Nice.
But people can look me up. They can find my comedy on Instagram at PTS Comic 77. It's the same for Twitter. And you can find my calendar on both of those places. My wife is currently updating my website, so that'll be up and running again very soon. But it'll be primetimestevecomedy.org. And yeah, so thanks very much for having me, guys.
A pleasure. Charles. I think we're going to see you at a Puppet Slam soon.
You'll probably see me at a Puppet Slam. I was doing XPT last week. I think my two things for sport is anything that my wife says. I got to remember to point the right way for where she is on the screen.
Steve, you're not his wife.
That's a lot of what I end up doing. But then the other thing is the education department at the Center for Puppetry Arts is absolutely fantastic. They have children's programming, they have adult programming. I have helped out with a number of things there, and they are just the most wonderful people. And for anybody who does a lot of the theater conference education things, Loretta Baumgartner, who's director of education there, is amazing, and support everything they do. And you may see me some randomly time there with the center for those things.
Yeah, and a lot of people who watch this, you're coming into DragonCon. If you come in early, it is not that far from the convention. Go visit the Center of Puppetry Arts.
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
It will make you cry in a good way. I saw Jim's desk and had a breakdown. I will admit that. So yeah, definitely look them up. Alicia.
I am actually opening my own hybrid school this coming year, Karis Academy in Lilburn, Georgia. And I also teach and direct at Snellville Performing Arts in Snellville. So
very nice. And Jennifer.
Very cool. Yeah, I teach at Gilbert High School in Lexington, South Carolina. Super exciting. But if you ever want to connect with me on Instagram, it's Drama Mama 4, like the number 4 ever. And I also have a TikTok, so I'm really cool on TikTok. Just kidding. It's starring Simmons on TikTok. So,
all right, and we will. Sarah will put those all in show notes. And so for Sarah and myself, again, thank the 4 of you so much for coming. We would love to have you back again sometime. Theater education is important. Stand strong with the WGA. If you are watching this on the YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, all the social medias things. Thank you for coming. And we will return to the stage soon.